Hi, I'm Russell Sturgis. I'm the founder and principal of EAP Mentor. Welcome to part 5 in the series of Mindfulness in Business. This week I'm going to discuss, and this is going to be the final in this series on mindfulness in business, I'm going to discuss the why you're in business and what that's got to do with mindfulness. Mother Teresa was said to have made the observation, I don't care what you do, I care more about why you do it. And that's really what I want to look at today is what is it that has you turn up and do what it is that you do? Are you selling a product, for example, in order to make a livelihood? Or do you have a product that you're able to sell to the world that makes a difference to the quality of the lives of the people that you're servicing or dealing with? And of course, how you relate to the why then has a huge impact on your experience personally and the way in which you experience your clients experience you, and the way in which the product that you have is able to really do what it's meant to do, and the way it's there to help people have a better human experience. Because really, at the end of the day, all product in one way or another is about having people have a better experience in their life. And so understanding how your product is intrinsic to having people have a better quality of life is fundamental to you being able to find the service in what it is that you offer. How you think, feel and act is governed by what you value. So in other words, the things that are important to you, your core values, can easily be identified by how you think, feel and act. And so in the written blog, I give some examples around that, and a perfect example of this is, and this is where it sort of gets a little bit tricky. You can have two people who are involved in doing community service. And for one person, the way in which they turn up and do what they do is the basis of, or comes out of, a true expression of compassion. In other words, that they're driven by not only the love that they have for themselves, but the love that they feel for another. And of course, that love that you have for yourself, or that self-honouring, makes it possible to be honouring of other people. And so that becomes one why. Another why, and we often see this, is the drive that have people serve in, say, a volunteering role purely because of the kudos it gives them. I'm sure many of you have been involved in associations where people have got involved in leadership roles that really was ego-driven and wasn't really about service, it was about serving themselves. And the difference is that in the latter example, people either typically promise a lot and don't deliver, or they promise a lot, give a lot and keep on giving to the point where there's burnout and exhaustion, and they're not able to continue in the role because they've exhausted themselves. Generally speaking, those particular motives are driven by something that's quite self-centered, egocentric, as opposed to the other why, which is a real sense of seeing the opportunity to make a difference in the world and to extend compassion purely for the sake of being compassionate, where you actually see a need and feel the desire to fulfill it. And the difference in this behaviour is that there's absolute clarity in terms of honesty. So there's no sort of over-delivering or over-promising in the delivering. And more to the point, there's a strong sense of self honouring that's involved in that, which means that there's this capacity to have, and this has sort of become a cliche these days, but there's this work-life balance, this ability to honour yourself while honouring others, and so you're able to find the balance between these, which leaves you healthy and well, whereas the other you tends to result in burnout, depression, compassion fatigue. There's a whole lot of other things that are typical of that other way of expressing oneself. So at the end of the day, how we think, act and feel is driven by what we value, and what we value is driven by our ultimate desire. So in the case of somebody who's driven to egocentrically engage in what it is that they do, oftentimes it's about filling a personal need, which is about some form of lack of value, some form of lack of personal worth, and it's an attempt to establish credibility either through popularity in terms of how you're acclaimed, power and the ability to be controlling, or financial success and to establish financial credibility in the world, as opposed to another motive which in its healthiest form would be about being committed to the need to live life with inner stillness by achieving inner peace. And when we're in this state, the way that that's achieved is through a commitment to the practice of living mindfully, and that combination results in benevolence and compassion. And so that what happens is the way in which a service is delivered is about truly meeting the needs of the people that you're servicing, your customers and your clients. And it's about being able to be aware of who the person is, where you've taken the time to really understand their need and then deliver a service that matches their need, as opposed to you selling a product in order to supply your need. And so what we're talking about here is a very different way, a different why of how you're approaching business. In terms of the way which is driven by the need for success, to prove your credibility, or to establish your power in the world, or to have you be financially successful, most of that is programmed behaviours, and they're habitual, which means that you turn up and do what you do because that's what you learnt. It was a job, it's where you started, it was a mistake that you got there, or you went and did years of study at university and it's like, this is where I've ended up, and so I do what I do. It's what I've been trained to do, it's how I survive, it's how I make a buck. These become all the rationale for doing what you're doing and continuing to do those things. The conscious way of approaching the why is about the sense that what you're here to do is to improve the quality of the life of your clients and customers through your service and goods that you're supplying, and that while improving their quality of life, you're also maintaining your quality of life. In other words, you have this commitment to being self-loving and self-honouring, while also having a genuine commitment to the way in which you extend a service to the people that you work with as clients and as customers. So there's a difference in how these things turn up in the world, and ultimately I would suggest to you that as you're able to come from the conscious way of approaching business, which has you become aware of not just your need to sell a product, but aware of the needs of your client and customer, as well as maintaining aware of your own personal needs and finding a balance of those things, and at the same time developing a conscientiousness around the way in which you relate to the environment and the planet in which you live. That balance of consciousness becomes a way of expressing the why in business that results in a whole lot of benefits. One is personal fulfillment. So at the end of each day, you go home with a sense that you've made a difference in the world. The second thing is that you wake up in the morning excited about the prospect that you're going to make a difference in the world, that you have something meaningful to do and something meaningful to contribute to the lives of people. It also means that because of that sense of joy that you have in what you do, there's a higher engagement and a greater capacity for productivity in what it is that you achieve each day. Now, because of that higher engagement and productivity, it means that it's easier to be a little bit more, and a lot more, I would suggest actually, aware of life-work balance, which means that you can get to the end of your workday, and instead of having to work longer hours, you're able to stop at a time that is beneficial to you, beneficial to those that you love, your family, and that you're able to then balance your life with things that are nurturing and self-nurturing in terms of what you do outside of your work environment. It means that being less stressed as a result of striking this balance, there's less of a tendency to find distractions, which are generally addictions, to help cope with the stress. So once again, by taking on less addictions, there's going to be less need for alcohol, less need for food, less need for over-exercising, less need for gambling. There's so many things that people do in order to help balance, which in turn is a cheap attempt at trying to establish a sense of worth or a high that would be naturally associated with a sense of fulfillment and a sense of self-achievement and self-worth. I hope that you've found this series on mindfulness in business of interest. I hope that it's something that's able to plant some seeds for how it's possible for you to consider approaching what it is that you do differently and in a way that's more serving both for you and for your staff, for your customers, for your family, and for your community as a whole. Now, you'll see behind me a poster, and on that is my new book, Get Out of Jail Card. And this is a book that describes my own journey, and as you've read some of the blogs, you've read some of my own personal experiences around finding this balance in work life. And this book really describes the narrative and the way in which it impacted on me and imprisoned me. And what I'm suggesting, of course, in this book is that the get out of jail card, which is us being imprisoned in our suffering, is in fact mindfulness. And please go to russellsturgis.com.au to find out about the programs that I deliver and to find out more about my book. If you go into my store on my webpage, you'll be able to find that. And of course, if you want to find out more about the Enhancers Awareness Program, please go to eapmentor.com. Thank you for listening, and please come back again in the next month to have a look at the new series that we'll be talking about. And this is going to be about how to remember to be mindful when you're presented with those choices between habitual behaviour and living life mindfully. Thank you, and we'll speak to you again soon. Bye.